Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Sharon Steyer as she sings the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. Gave
join me as we say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to introduce Friar Mike Lasky to say our invocation.
From the Gospel of Matthew, you have heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist evil. But whoever shall strike you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. So many chapters, so many verses. But these were the words from Jesus' Sermon on the Mount that were found at ground zero after the September 11th attacks. The pages of the Bible on which they were printed had fused to a chunk of steel as the World Trade Center collapsed. Jesus' words were not a doormat theology, for in his time and culture, it was a signal that the one who was hit the first time would not lay down, but rather confront injustice in a nonviolent manner, which demands respect and recognition of human dignity. My Franciscan family, we lost a brother on 9/11, Friar Michael Judge, Franciscan priest and chaplain of the New York City Fire Department, and the first recorded victim of 9/11. He, like the other first responders on that day 20 years ago, turned the other cheek to save lives. When they were knocked down, they rose up again and again, so long as they had breath within them. So now let us pray. O God of love, compassion, and healing, look on us, people of many different faiths and traditions who gather today, remembering incredible violence and pain. We ask you in your goodness to give eternal light and peace to all who died. The heroic first responders, our firefighters, police officers, emergency service workers, and Port Authority personnel, along with all the innocent men and women who were victims of this tragedy simply because of where they lived and worked. We ask you in your compassion to bring healing to those who, because of their presence, suffer from injuries and illness. Heal too the pain of the still grieving families and all who lost loved ones in this tragedy. Give them strength to continue their lives with courage and with hope. We are mindful as well of those who suffered death, injury, and loss on the same day at the Pentagon and in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, within our Commonwealth. Our hearts are one with theirs, as our prayer embraces their pain and suffering. God of peace, bring your peace to our violent world, peace in the hearts of all women and men, and peace among the nations of the earth. Turn to your way of love those whose hearts and minds are consumed with hatred. God of understanding, overwhelmed by the magnitude of this tragedy, we seek your light and guidance as we confront such terrible events. Grant that those whose lives were spared may live so that the lives lost may not have been lost in vain. Comfort and console us, strengthen us in hope, and give us the wisdom and courage to work tirelessly for a world where true peace and love reign, a turning of the cheek among nations and in the hearts of all. Amen.
Thank you, Friar Mike. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce to you the Mayor of Shamokin, the Honorable John J. Brown.
Good morning. Today, after 4 years in my administration, I'll break from a little bit of tradition. Normally, when I come to speak at anything, I wear a shirt and tie and come totally unprepared to speak whatsoever and just ad-lib as I go along. Today's a little different. Today's a very important day in our lives here. Today, I wear firefighter gear, not just in support of the firefighters that are here, but as my speech goes along, you'll see why I walked from the beginning to here in this gear. 20 years ago, folks, 19 men hijacked 4 fuel-loaded U.S. commercial airplanes bound for West Coast destinations. A total of 2,977 people were killed in New York City, Washington, D.C., and outside of Shanksville, Pennsylvania. The attacks were orchestrated by Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden. At the World Trade Center site in Lower Manhattan, 2,753 people were killed when a hijacked American Airlines Flight 11 and United Airlines Flight 175 were intentionally crashed into the North and South Towers, or as a result of the crashes. Of those who perished during the initial attacks and the subsequent collapses of those towers, 343 were firefighters from New York City, 23 were New York City police officers, 37 were from the Port Authority. The victims ranged in age from 2 years old to 85 years old that day. At the Pentagon in Washington, another 184 people were killed when hijacked American Airlines Flight 77 crashed into that building. Near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, 40 passengers and crew aboard United Flight 93 died when a plane crashed into a field. It's believed that the hijackers crashed the plane in that location rather than their unknown target after the passengers and crew attempted to retake control of that flight deck. As of October 2019, 1,645, or 60%, of the 2,753 World Trade Center victims' remains have been positively identified, according to their medical examiner's office. Folks, it's not just the 2,753 and the other numbers that I read. Continues to today. We lose firemen, policemen, first responders from the effects of being at that scene for such a long time. Cancer has been prevalent. We lose more and more people. These numbers are larger than you can imagine. The purpose for me today to wear fire gear, I thought it was a good idea. Made it about halfway and didn't think it was such a good idea. It's hot out and it's difficult to walk in this gear. One story that came out of there was that of firefighter Stephen Gerard Siller. Stephen was the youngest of 7 children born to May and George Siller. At the age of 8, Stephen lost his father, and a year and a half later, he lost his mother, leaving him an orphan, and he was raised by his older siblings. For a while, Stephen went through a period of struggle, But thanks to the love of his siblings and the values instilled in him by his parents, he grew up to be an extraordinary individual, dedicated fireman. More than most, he knew that time was precious and accomplished much in 34 years. On September 11th, Stephen, who was assigned to Brooklyn Squad 1, had just finished his shift and was on his way to play golf with his brothers. He got word over his scanner in his truck of a plane hitting the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Upon hearing the news, Stephen called his wife Sally, asked her to tell his brothers. Catch up with you later. He returned to Squad 1. The trucks had already left. Stephen grabbed his gear, threw it in his truck, and began to drive towards the towers. As he reached the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, the tunnel had already been closed. It was inaccessible to vehicles. Determined to carry out his duty, Stephen donned his gear and began to race on foot through the tunnel towards the towers. That's why I wore my gear today. Stephen gave his life at the towers, saving others. Stephen had everything to live for: a great wife, 5 wonderful children, a devoted extended family and friends. Stephen's parents were lay Franciscans, and he grew up under the guiding philosophy of St. Francis of Assisi, whose encouraging and inspirational phrase, "While we have time, let us do good," were words that Stephen lived by. Stephen's life and heroic death serve as a reminder to all of us to give life to the fullest and spend our time here on earth doing good. I found it odd that I was put in a program right after Friar Mike, as I read this and found out about he was a Franciscan and believed in it. He did everything he could. The other thing that attaches us to the Stephen Siller story, Craig Rhodes is here. Behind me somewhere? Craig organized right after the attacks. They started the Tunnels to Towers runs to raise money and start a foundation. Craig, other firefighters from the companies here in Shamokin went there on a regular basis. They became endeared by the Siller family and are pretty much a large part of that organization still today. Craig travels around the country building houses for that foundation, for mortgage-free homes for people that have suffered great loss. Thank you all for coming here today, and try and remember, while we have time, let us do good. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage State Representative Kurt Mosser.
I had prepared remarks, but on the walk over here, I'm thinking they don't do justice. You see, I feel like I don't even belong on this stage with the firefighters, the policemen who are here. Thinking back on that day and remembering what happened, that first plane going into the tower. I was at home watching the news, went up to my restaurant, sat down, turned the TV on right away and saw the second tower being hit. Just brought back on that walk over here, walking behind that flag, the memories of when those towers collapsed and those dark clouds that enveloped those streets. The buildings went dark. But yet these firefighters, while everyone else was running away from this scene, were running towards it. Hearing the heroic acts of people who were helping people out of that building, got 20 people out, went back in, and they themselves never came out. Makes me feel like I'm not worthy to be on this stage. I remember hearing the stories of the 2 military people who right away were assembled and got up in their fighter jets immediately, without time to put on missiles or weapons onto the planes. Their job, if necessary, was to do a kamikaze mission into another civilian aircraft. When you think about things like that, and the story after story, the Siller story, it just makes you feel helpless. I remember all the heroic acts. I remember all the customers and friends of mine that would come into my restaurant that day, and we sat in stunned silence. No one spoke. Sat for hours watching that TV, and no one spoke. Those horrific acts will forever live in my mind. But yet, what also lives in my mind is the days and the weeks, the months afterwards, how this nation came together. We were one. You couldn't see, everyone was looking for Fire Department of New York hats, NYPD hats. Every sporting event, you heard the cheers. USA, USA. We came together as a country. We need to do that more, folks. 9/11 was a horrific, horrific act. We should always remember those who fought for us and who continue to fight for us, so that we are the land of the free because of the brave. Thank you so much. God bless those who all who serve, all our firemen, our police officers, our first responders, and God bless the United States.
Thank you, Kurt. Now my daughter can give you your keys back to your car. So. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, please let me welcome from the American Red Cross, Mr. Peter Brown.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. 9/11 is one of those events that happen where it becomes a milestone in your life. For my father, when I was a child, I remember him telling me where he was and what he was doing when he heard that President Kennedy had been assassinated. Early in my career, we experienced the Challenger explosion, and then 9/11. That morning, I was in the basement attending a meeting. Went into the basement at 7:30, came out at 9:30, and realized very quickly that my life and the life of my children and my friends and my family and our community had been changed. The American Red Cross exists to provide support for people in times of disaster. This year marks the 140th anniversary of the creation of the American Red Cross, and it's been 20 years since the events of 9/11. The Red Cross was there. We have worked side by side and in partnership with first responders, providing disaster relief, providing resources to help communities and individuals recover. And we are so thankful for those first responders that we work with, and we honor the first responders who fell on 9/11. I too would normally not be wearing a t-shirt to come up and speak on such an occasion. But one of the ways that we can honor those who fell is by participating in days of service. Yesterday, volunteers, as a part of a collaborative effort between the Greater Susquehanna Valley United Way, Susquehanna ARC, and the American Red Cross Pennsylvania Rivers Chapter, spent about 6 hours working in this community in Shamokin, going door to door and providing home fire safety information and installing free smoke alarms. And we'll be holding another event next Saturday in Mount Carmel. And this is part of a project called the 9/11 Days of Service, as a way to look to engage communities to come together and work together to honor those who fell, honor the living who still struggle and suffer, and to do something tangible to make our community safer, reduce the risk of death and injury from home fires, and continue our strong relationships with the local fire departments. I should also have mentioned that the Shamokin Fire Department was with us yesterday and hosted us at their facility just down the road. So I thank you for the opportunity to be here today. We honor those who passed and their families, and we look forward to continued work to make this community stronger and better and more prepared in the face of disaster. Thank you.
And now, I'd like to introduce Cole Township Commissioner.
Hi, I'm Craig Fetterman. I'm just going to do it right here. I just like would echo what Representative Mosser said, which is God bless all the victims, all the first responders, their families, and lest we forget all the military over the past 20-year war, the veterans and the active military, and give them a big thank you for everything they've done. And may God continue to bless the United States of America. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. He will not come up on stage.
Can't climb the steps too good.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I'd like to welcome Mr. Mark Sosnowski as he sings God Bless the USA.
Please, if you know the chorus, feel free to sing along, guys. It's such an honor to be here with you all today in remembrance of this great and memorable occasion. God bless everybody. If tomorrow all the things were gone start again, just my children and my wife. I thank my God above to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. Still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from the sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston, New York to LA. There's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. I'm proud to be an American, well at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget the men who died and gave that right to me. Still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Craig Rhodes.
Thank you, Mike. First off, I want to thank everyone for attending today. I'm going to try to hold it together. Some of the things that I have experienced in the last couple of weeks have been extremely emotional and very rewarding. But I am now asked to introduce our guest speaker. Our guest speaker comes to us from New York City as a retired lieutenant paramedic from New York City. He has served on several different areas of the city, as you can see what is written in your program. I don't need to read that to you. He's accompanied here today with his wife, Nancy. Just one thing I do want to mention, his one daughter is a firefighter in Fairfax, Virginia, paramedic. Women do belong in the fire service. They are very helpful. It's comforting to have a woman at a scene where another woman is injured, rather than have some big burly guy like me trying to take care of her. It is much more fitting. Lieutenant Anthony Tomaszewski has served in New York City for many years. He worked on what they called the pile. The pile was the collapsed buildings, trying to recover anyone that may still be alive and recovering the ones that are not. I'm sure he will speak of that and how difficult that type of a task is. It's my pleasure and my honor at this time to introduce Anthony Tomaszewski.
First of all, I'd like to thank everyone here for coming and thank the town for being so generous and hospitable. It was great to see the kids along the street with their hands over their hearts, the flags all over town. We have a really beautiful town here. I want to thank everybody on the dais and everybody involved with getting this together. It's tough because they say I'm a speaker, but I'm really not much of a speaker. But I'll do my best. I retired from the job in 2009. I spent 8 additional years. I had 20 years when the towers were hit. And after they were hit, the months afterwards, I really had many issues with God about how this could happen. And I kind of resolved that, and I continued on for another 8 years. My company was from the Bronx at that time, and we were relocated down to a company in Lower Manhattan after the towers were hit and came down. We were sent down to dig that evening and try to rescue people and help people, and it was really chaos. It was trying to keep your mind focused on your job was tough, but you know you had to do it. It's what you sign up for, and you love it. You actually do it because you love it, like all the first responders here now. Spent time down there for a while, and then eventually was going back and forth from the Bronx. Went back up after the first day and a half. Slept at the firehouse, then came back down. We were actually commandeering any state vehicle or parking violations car we could, and we'd commandeer them from the Bronx and make them take us down to the Trade Center. So it was quite a sight. Then they got more of a cycle of sending guys down there, and you would work your regular shifts in the firehouse because you still had to be a firefighter for the people in your neighborhoods. And the outpouring of support from places all over the country, much like Shamokin, was unbelievable. Working on the pile once, there was a fellow from Georgia with a heavy equipment, and we needed to try to recover someone. And the way he used that machinery was so gentle and sacred. It just shows me how different we are from the people that attacked us and how we value life and our freedom in this country. And there were people like that from all over the country, iron workers, electricians, construction guys. They contributed amazingly. As you know, I volunteer for the Tunnel to Towers Foundation, and I go in the museum and travel all over the country. And one of the great missions of the museum is to provide housing for handicapped veterans. And it's a labor of love because it makes such a difference in their lives. In fact, if anybody's a veteran, will you please stand up? Anybody in the crowd that's a veteran? Can we give them a round of applause, please? And we just take a second to remember the 13 guys we just lost unnecessarily, and the many men and women that are still serving us all over the world, and you know, keeping freedom, making us that shining city on a hill. Like I said, I'm not much of a. I heard someone say this quote: "No one owns 9/11. We are all shareholders, all of us. It's just a matter of how much stock you have in it." And it's so true. From small towns in Pennsylvania to the big cities, all the Midwest, we're all Americans, and it all took something out of us. It all made a difference in our lives. Everybody knew what they were doing that day, and you never forget it. It's a point in time that's, and it's amazing, 20 years now, you know, looking back, it's still surreal, you know. Sometimes I look up into clouds and I think those guys are gonna march back, you know, as well as the police officers and the people that were taken from us, actually taken from us in those buildings, as well as the people on Flight 93, the other planes, people at the Pentagon, and how much of a scar that is that may never heal. I just want to make sure that the phrase "never forget," that everybody remembers that. We teach our children that, because there's people that still hate us. The first attack was in '93, and a lot of people don't even remember that. So those people have been hating us for many years, and they hate us because of the way we treat each other, we treat our families, the way we treat strangers, the way we treat people who have, whether it's their sexual preference or their color or wherever country they came from. You know, we're a country of immigrants, and which makes us special. I'd like to close with thanking everybody for coming out today, and how privileged I am to be in front of you and to speak. And it would be tough for me to go into a lot of particulars with the pile, but I want to mention just one story. The loss of life from so many people. There was a fence, and people were putting even sheets of paper, placards. They'd put their husband, wife, or daughter's face on a piece of paper, and they would put "missing" on top, and there was thousands of them, and they would be missing. Have you seen? They worked on this floor, and it was one of the most saddest things I've ever seen. That they hoped that these people had somehow either been taken to a hospital and not identified, and maybe they were still there, and that hope of them still being around. It was a tough day today. It's a tough day for all of us, and like I said, I want to thank everybody, and thank you for having me, and thank you. God bless America, and God keep us all. Never forget. Thank you.
You'll have a part of Shamokin Township to remember us by. So thank you very much, sir. At this time, we're going to ask Shamokin Mayor to come over? Okay, and that was Mr. Fetterman?
As we had alluded to probably in the newspaper, in the news, that there was something that was going to be presented to the city and Go Township here today. We have been very, very fortunate to be able to acquire what is under this drape. Now, keeping in mind the number of people that the mayor had talked about that were killed on 9/11. What we like to say, and what we totally do believe, and I'm sure Tony's going to agree with me on this, that the souls of those people that were lost that day are in these monuments. What we have are two large pieces of the steel of the collapsed buildings. There. On them, as you can see, engraved by a welder, World Trade Center, 9/11, and the words, "Let's never forget." Too easily do we forget. There are two plaques placed on these bases of these monuments. One is to go to the city of Shamokin and one to Cole Township. The plaque reads, "The Stephen Siller Foundation is honored to present this monument to the city of Shamokin, Pennsylvania. This monument was created from the steel of the Twin Towers, which collapsed 20 years ago today. New York City and America were under attack that day. The one for Cole Township, very similar, except for one phrase. The Stephen Siller Foundation is honored to present this monument to Cole Township in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania." I don't know if many people know that's the proper title for Cole Township. Cole Township in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This monument created out of the steel of the Twin Towers that collapsed 20 years ago today. To touch this steel, and just think, this is part of those buildings where almost 3,000 people were killed. To me, it becomes very sentimental. You are welcome to everyone to come up and take a look. Put your hand on this steel and just feel the presence of the bodies and the lives that were lost. Tony, you want to add anything?
I think it's a wonderful tribute, and I think the big thing is never forget. You should never forget the sacrifice that was made that day by so many Americans, and there were so many people that were heroes. People in those planes, they were going down Shanksville. It's amazing. And the people were just going to work that day. They were just innocent people. So I think it's a beautiful tribute, and like I said, God bless America. We are a special place still. We are a special people.
I would just like to add, after doing 16 years of municipal budgets, I would like to personally thank all the volunteers in the Twin communities for their service to the fire department and all the good people of our area. I could not have balanced one of those budgets if we had to pay all you people. You're priceless. Thank you.
Words I do not have. This means a lot, Craig. Thank you. It really and truly means a lot. You've dedicated a lot of time to this foundation. You've been a good man to the city of Shamokin. Thank you for making these arrangements and getting this for us. I appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, please bow your heads in a moment of silence.
Sorry, before we close, boy, that hurt. I'd like to have a special thank you to the Shamokin and Cole Township Police Department, fire bureaus. Oh, you guys, thank you so much to make this possible. The SCI Cole Township Color Guard from the prison, thank you so much. Mrs. Steyer for helping us put this together. Mark Sosnowski, what a great job. Our speakers, our elected officials. This is all possible because of you guys helping this out. Our guest speaker, Tony Tomaszewski, sorry, and all the committees. This was such a volunteer group. This was a year in the making. Saber, FAR, Better Together. Everybody had a hand in this. United Way, Red Cross, to put this on. And we're so blessed. This community is so blessed. One thing 9/11 taught us, 9/12 taught us, is unity and hope and encouragement. And it's still present. It's present in a small town of Shamokin and Cole Township. I'm blessed to live here, blessed to be a part of this area. Thank you so much for putting this on today. And closing remarks. Before I go any further, how about we have the benediction? Please welcome Reverend Sarah Hirschberger, pastor of Grace Lutheran Church.
In the benediction that I wrote for today, I mentioned St. Francis before I knew that St. Francis would be mentioned by our mayor, and our friendly neighborhood Franciscan would be here. So I encourage you when you go home today to look up the prayer of St. Francis and to read the words that he said about being an instrument of God's peace. So let us pray. Eternal God, as we go from this place, we take your spirit with us. Within the memories of this day, there is pain, loss, and grief.